Okay, we're in CV1. I've got my vision set up for the dual eyes, so I can better explain the peripheral vision and how the lenses look in this headset. And I'll try to do that for every other headset as well. I'm starting with the CV1, the standard face cushion. It's really rock hard foam at this point. I've never really used it as it is. This is the very first time I've been using this standard faceplate on CV1. I've always had a cotton cover and then immediately into the VR cover with the replaceable foam, um, sort of PU foam covers. So I'll be brutally honest. This faceplate is fine for me, to be honest. I'll probably have to wear it for a few more hours to get annoyed at the actual comfort, but as in distance to lenses, I can tell that my eyelashes are pretty much hitting the VR optician lens inserts, so I've got no issues regarding how close I am to the lenses. And this is even on a headset that's so old that the actual audio fault's cut in, so I've had to tape the head strap. So this isn't as tight as I could get this head strap. This is a really nice, loose, comfy fit. It's served me perfectly well for, well, since 2016 until now, to be honest. So I'm going to cover a few of the different situations in test HMD. Um, Calibrate height thing, I'm sat down, I'm going to do this equally for all tests. Pixel density 1.0, that's not true in this headset. What I've done is I've changed it to 2.0 in the Oculus debug tools, just because it makes sense having a 3080 Ti with this HMD now. It doesn't make sense to drive it native. Super sampling makes a really big difference in CV1, and I think you'd be surprised at just how big of a difference it makes and how it can hold its own. Um, Text and God rays. Now let's go straight into this with the glare test here. So everyone knows CV1's bad for God rays. I'm not going to kid anyone about that. But what I am going to sort of try and explain, to give some reference later on, I can read that that's glare test. That may sound unbelievably stupid, but I can read that's white and black background. I can see it's white and black background. PICO 4, this is awful to look at. And that's, I'm on a second headset on the Pico 4, so it wasn't like I had bad lenses. I had a bad screen in the first one. Um, this is it's a bit embarrassing going back to the CV1 and seeing like, holy shit, this actually looks a little bit better. So this isn't perfect. This has got God ray stemming every which way away from the glare, from the actual text, and I've actually got chromatic aberration, so color fringing around all of the edges. Um, Again, same with this. I can happily look at this. I can obviously tell you the glare is just ridiculous. It's got stuff coming in every which way, especially around the outer edges and stuff. Again, I might just be more used to this than people now. These ones in particular, when I turn my eyes here, what they do is they follow the sort of concentric rings of the lenses, the curvature, and I can see almost like a searchlight. If you had a searchlight up in the sky or a concert, or if you watch Batman, you're trying to call Batman into Gotham City. It's that going on. So when I turn, I can see that whole beam of light moving, but that's actually going away from my eyes. The only thing I've got coming into the center is, again, depending on where I'm looking. If I look dead center, I can see a very, very soft beam of light coming into the middle, but it's not coming into. I'm gonna have to get into the light here. It's not coming into the center of my eyes. It's going into the center of what the image is. So again, it's annoying, it's bad, but it's not game breaking. I've never had a sort of problem playing with a CV1, especially like this situation is just the worst. That's the whole reason this there is a test. You'd never have that situation in a game. Um, right, moving on. Glare's obviously bad, you know that. It's a CV1. Color test. This just, it blows me away every time I come back to CV1. The colors are fantastic. I don't know why everyone moved away from OLED, but the whole range is great. Super bright and colorful with the 32. I can even see all the way down to number 1. So I can still see the yellow, I can still see that. It's got the whole range of color. So that's fantastic, that test color. That's a straight pass for the CV1 here. The main one I'm probably going to need to go into, just I'll put these as a comparison later on. The FOV tests. This board here has results from all different headsets, and apparently I should expect a horizontal of 88 and 116 for the CV1, and then it's got a few others on here. It doesn't have any of the new Picos and such, or Quest 2, but What I'm going to do at the end of the video is I'm going to put in standard faceplate and aftermarket faceplates, be that VR cover or my 3D printed solutions. And I'm going to put the two results there because that's just going to be easier for me to jot down, do it, because it'd be a very long video if I have to do that and cover it all. But the main one I wanted to cover, and this is what people didn't quite understand when I sort of talk about Quest 2 lenses and the new Pico 4 lenses and having a blur on the outside, or the sweet spot is fine. It's the actual edge-to-edge clarity is what I call it. So this is a very good example here, and the reason I've put on the recording the two eyes is so I can actually show just how much I can read clearly when I get close to this. So if I stand on a 1 meter mark here, I'm quite literally on the very edge. I'm going to have to keep my head incredibly still. The text is clear right up to the edges, and hopefully that per eye recording will show you I can't see any more in the actual render, because that is as much as I can see in the headset. I've got round and I've got tuned. I can't move my head too much without obviously skewing that. But I can look all the way up and I can read that as clear as day. No problem at all. The bottom right and bottom left, I have a tiny bit of blur, but I can still read that's case. And still read that's round, a place. Yeah, it's all fine. I can read that, no problem at all. When I get to this Quest 2 and the Pico 4, I can almost guarantee I've got there'd be probably, I don't know, 3 lines in, there'd be a line that goes all the way around the lenses that has a super strong blur. It's almost like a separation. And that's what annoys me, coming from a CV1, which is obviously really old at this point, and really got bad lenses according to everyone else. Quest 2 lenses solving the God ray problem, but they had this horrible blur going around the outside, which makes it really impossible to read anything. Or even when I'm sim racing, just glance in the corner to look in side mirrors, because I haven't got any usable info. With this, I can see that I've got around 2 decade. I can read all of that plain as day at the very furthest point in the lens. So that is my main gripe. Again, I'm not going to be able to get any closer without obviously just being able to tell you. I can still see as much as I can see in the lenses is absolutely crystal clear. I can't explain that enough. So that's going to be an interesting comparison going back to the Quest 2 and stuff, and I'll obviously cut those headsets down and just show you what I'm actually trying to deal with here, because this video is going to turn out quite long. Not going to bother with track and test. That's obviously going to be quite a win for CV1. This one's going to be quite interesting. So I'm super sampled to 2.0, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to look at the bottom one here, and I'm just going to move back until I can tell you that realistically I wouldn't be able to tell you what the letters are. 3 meter. So 3 meter at the very bottom line in this Oculus CV1 super sampled to 2.0. And again, I'll edit this all in as results in the video. This is not me bullshitting. If I want to look at the green line, so realistically these are the two that you should be able to see, and the test explains that you should be able to read those two from all the way back here, which is not going to happen in any headset that's been made so far. Maybe a Vario, Aero, or whatever they're called might be able to do it, but there's absolutely no way CV1's going to do that. There's nothing even close to like a Pico 4 is going to do that, because your compression is going to kick in way before the actual resolution benefit's going to do you there. So for the actual 2020, I'll be fair, it's about there. Right, so 4.25 meters to read 2020 vision in this headset in the Oculus Rift CV1. I could go back, but I'm obviously not going to be able to tell you the difference if that is an O or a C or a Q. Obviously, it's, yeah. As soon as I move back, I'm going to lose it. So what I'm going to do, obviously, is compare that to other headsets. So I'm going to take the results from this video, put them all together, so you can see realistically just how much a DisplayPort cable makes a difference. Because again, this is a DisplayPort cable headset. There's no compression. But it is a really low pixel density, which can be helped out by super sampling. So those results will probably surprise you just how well they're holding up considering the age of the headset. And again, just going back to OLED is fantastic. So the actual contrast ratios in here, this board here, I can almost immediately tell you this is way better than any other headset. So from this point, the very faintest lines are on 252. So I can see the whole board down to 252. So I'm only missing 253, 254 in the CV1. And again, I don't think an LCD headset is going to be able to touch that really. Not unless it's got a DisplayPort cable, because again, that's really going to suffer in the compression trying to differentiate the fine details. So yeah, 252 being an OLED, super brilliant. Again, none of this is going to come across on an LCD. So all of the bottom lines I can see, that's no problem. And I can see all the way, considering I'm not standing up in the right place anyway. The second line, number 12. So 12 onwards, I can differentiate the contrast in that one. So I can see that, no problem at all. So second one in on the second line up. And all of these, I can tell the difference on. And that's without adjusting any of these values. That's just Oculus Rift CV1 OLED for you. That's why I feel headsets really need to get back to this, because I can guarantee LCDs aren't going to be able to replicate any of that. Next test as audio. I'm not going to bother with that because you know that's good in the CV1. This one's really interesting, subpixel test. I actually use this not as a subpixel test as such. I use this as chromatic aberration test. So with chromatic aberration corrections, you want to be able to correct the color shift in the head movements. So obviously the image has got this pre-distorted image that you can see in the recording. That'll all be corrected in software so it looks flat. So that all of these lines are flat to me. That's no problem at all. But the chromatic aberration, and this is a problem in the PICO Neo 3 Link. This is the only problem in the PICO Neo 3 Link, to be honest. I have this in CV1 as well. So the blue lines, the vertical blue line I'm looking at here, when I shift left and right, that blue line is almost, well, it practically is moving away. It's breaking away from the straight line that's supposed to be and shifting either left when I look left or right when I look right. So that's doing it. Obviously, the blue is the absolute worst case. And again, when I look up and down, it shifts the whole blue line up and down. The whole blue cross, I should say, up and down. So both the vertical and the horizontal move up and down. That is not something I've ever actually noticed in gaming with this headset. And again, with the CV1 text clarity not being fantastic, it's not really a huge issue. I wouldn't say it's got color fringing everywhere you look. It's never really been a problem for me. So with the PICO Neo 3 Link, however, because the resolution is so high and it's so clear, the only blur that you have, if I turn back around, the only blur that you have in the outside edges is purely because of chromatic aberration. So when I do this test on the PICO Neo 3 Link, that edges they're super crisp all the way to the end. I can't explain it enough. You really need to try the PICO Neo 3 Link compared to the Pico 4, because the Pico 4 just can't compete with how much you can actually see in your peripheral clearly, and that's a huge difference in the actual feel of immersion. Is not having this weird, they call it like a binocular effect, where you see the black outline, the circles, but that's not the binocular effect. I would say the binocular effect is you've got a circular vision, but you've got like a tunnel, which is that blurriness going a sort of a little bit around the inside of the edges. So it'd be like, well, where my thumb and finger is there, it'd be about that thick, going all the way around it, that you can't quite see properly. So yeah, with the CV1 going through the PICO Neo 3 Link, it felt great because I've had this for so long. The actual edge-to-edge clarity, as I call it, I've had that for so long with the CV1. But going into the PICO Neo 3 Link, it's even better because the text is even more sharper. But I've got a tiny bit of chromatic aberration, not in this test in particular, because black on white, that's not a problem. When I get to stuff like that with the blues, that's where it gets bad. That is a correction that Pico can do. I'm still waiting for that, but that is basically showing like my appreciation for a good headset is the PICO Neo 3 Link over DisplayPort cable is mint. I wouldn't even entertain using the Pico 4. I've still got it here, and I'm going to still go through on a test and show you. But yeah, I can't explain that enough, how much of a difference that makes, having it on the outside edges clear. So again, being a CV1, being DisplayPort cable, stuff like this, when you get to especially games, wall textures, you find any small details sort of get lost. So this is a low resolution headset. Even though it's super sampled, it's still a low resolution headset. So what's going to happen when I move back, the white lines are going to sort of eventually dither and eventually go away. But because this is OLED, I've got a slight advantage here. So I'm looking at a whole square and I'm getting to a ridiculous point. I can guarantee even the PICO Neuralink isn't going to do this. Right, I'm here, which is almost near the bench that I started with and almost near the marker. And I'll go forward and show you exactly what I'm looking at. This is going to be down to OLED. So this square here, so it goes through, I've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this box here, I've been looking at that, and these white lines, they're still white lines, they're still faint, but they're still white lines. And that's obviously going way back. So yeah, it's going way back. I can still see that there's lines going across left and right, up and down within that grid. They're not as defined as before. And from back here, all I can see is the dots, not the lines. I can see the dots, but again, being OLED, this is super sample of 2.0, remember. I can tell you that this is more impressive to look at than even the PICO Neo Freelink over DisplayPort cable. And that's ridiculous. So again, people are obviously saying that high res, low persistence LCDs are good. I disagree. I really need to shift back to OLED or QLED or whatever the new tech's going to be, micro LED, something to bring back this, because you're losing so much, not just for the resolution, but the actual sort of contrast difference that the OLED gives you, just in definition. So again, I'm looking at geometric test on the floor here. I'm going to keep moving back. And I would say just about breaking up the E there, so it looks more like an I than an E. So geometric test, I'm pretty much almost in line with the actual eye test board, and I can still read the geometric test sign. And that's going to be an interesting one to show you guys. Obviously, this is a CV1 still. You just have to remember it's low res CV1. When I go to PICO 4 on VD Godlike, remember how far I am here. Yeah, for what I can read on that geometric test sign. The test is still perfectly clear. The GEOM is perfectly clear. The E is just lost its horizontals. So remember that when I get to PICO 4. So you're going to be amazed at this. Again, I don't think there's much more I can show in this application. The FOV test, I said I'll do my own, because again, this is going to be so independent of the wearer, because depending on the canting of your lenses, how you wear your headset. If you wear the rear strap high, your top of the lens is going to be further away from you. That's going to affect how you see either the bottom or the top first with this test, because it gives you two dots that go either way. And what's going to happen is, if you wear your headset obviously on an angle, the bottom's going to stay in view, but the top won't. You won't be able to see the top, but you still see the bottom going down. So that's entirely dependent on how you wear the headset and the results you have. So the results are going to be, for me personally, just how the faceplates are affecting the FOV. And I will do two results based on where I can, if especially with PICO 4 on a big flat lenses, how wearing a headset affects what I see. Again, I will sort of explain that, because the top one's going to disappear before the bottom, how I normally wear a headset, which is right back at the very back of the headset's right down at the base of my skull, which keeps all the weight off the front. But what that ends up meaning is the lenses are canted, because obviously the headset's tilted back a bit. So that's going to affect my results, but we'll factor that into all of the results I post up. So this is going to be a very interesting sort of test between all my HMDs. Every one that I've got has VR optician prescription inserts, all with the same prescription. That is completely equal. I can't blame my eyes for any of this. In the cases of headsets that have got IPD adjustment, like the CV1 and the PICO 4, the only benefit I've got to that is slightly better stereo vision. But that being said, my IPD is 64, so I'm practically half a millimeter or a millimeter at most off of the Quest 2 and the PICO Neo 3 Link. It's barely noticeable. So within that regard, obviously, I'm not going to have any issues with sort of distance and judging and all the rest of it. But yeah, I think people would be amazed if they go back to a CV1, especially super sampled, just how good it is. It shows it shows its age. Obviously, like you look at this board in any other headset, and you'll be able to read all that text clearly from here. But again, it's one of those things in games. Um, Especially when you got distance details like this. This is why I was using it for sim racing over a Quest 2. Quest 2's got compression to deal with and the LCD-ness, so I just honestly can't read that geometric test in an LCD streaming headset. It just doesn't work. So yeah, let's do my tests. I'll put all the results up on screen in the next video and see what you guys think. So that's my explanation of this, is how I'm going to test this. I'm going to be as fair and equal as I can. Anything that's used in streaming, I'm going to go for the highest quality preset. With the case of Quest 2, I'm going to go for Oculus Link and VD. So I'm going to try to keep it interesting. I'm not going to bother with Pico Streaming Assistant. It doesn't give you any more benefit. It's a VD looks better on Pico than the Pico Streaming Assistant, so I'm not going to bother with that. Just as you obviously probably going to get an update where you get a bit more bit rate and a bit more resolution in Stream Assistant, but I'm not going to use that just for the issues I know that it has. And VD obviously keeps it a fair comparison between the two. And again, no color changes within VD. Again, it's going to affect how the image goes, so I'm just going to do it as equal and as sort of fair as I can, and just put the results up, see what you guys think. So yeah, next video should be all of the results, all broken down, all personal to my eyes. Don't take this as you buy a headset and you get better FOV. The main interesting point of the video is probably going to be the faceplate changes and how that is going to affect your FOV. But stuff like this, I wouldn't be able to show you. I'll be able to just do a quick covering in the video of how far back I can go to read this geometric test and where I can see the lines breaking. But the actual sort of eye test stuff, all the rest of it, I'll put the results in the actual video, because it's going to be, again, too long of a video to go through every headset and show you exactly what the results are going to be from all of this. I just put on screenshot what the headset is, what the result is, and you can just take that as gospel. I'm not going to be able to edit in the whole thing because the video's going to, or it's already a long video, just me explaining what's going to happen. So yeah, it's very interesting. I've only really got this got to this point now. I've got every headset with the prescription lenses all the same, so it keeps things as equal as I possibly can. And I've still got all the original faceplates to the headsets and also the aftermarket. So let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. Cheers, guys.